Fellow Nigerians, good day all. I consider it a huge privilege and I relish the opportunity to share my experience in this time-traveling voyage of my growing up years. Adebayo Adeoshun is my name. Here you have it. I was served by parents who were originally from the present Oke-Ogun area of Oyo State, but sojourned to Lagos for greener pastures in the early 1950s. I grew up in Lagos between the early 1970s and mid-80s. My father, a U.S. Institute of Photography trained and certified photographer, belonged to the upscale membership growls of that Lagos generation of city photographers, including Peter Obe, Pakpade Adeyinka, Sir Jackie Phillips, Alhaji Adebola Adegunwa of the then Bola Oguns and much later Phototech, Mr. Don Baba, Mr. Sumi Smartco, to mention but a few, and of these traveling historians whose lenses from the 127 and 120 through the lens metiering format cameras of Yashica and Mamiya, then to the SLR 35mm camera of Japanese brands of the 80s and 90s, including Canon, Olympus, Minolta, Fujica, and the Pentax of that era, not only captured the true essence of our city life for the upcoming generation, but maintained a tradition of storytelling by documenting the historical evolution of our city, particularly through photography. I was enrolled at St. Jude's Anglican Primary School in Lasamaja, Mushin. For my primary education, it was one of the public schools of that era, having been taken over from the Anglican missionary by the government. I recall with strong nostalgia now that ours was from the mostest average class family where I began my childhood years on the streets of Olaonishola, adjoining streets within the Lasamaja Mushin neighborhoods. I remember as toddlers how we plowed alongside our neighborhood friends, rolling discarded rubber tires on the street with reckless abandon, played table soccer from house to house and street to street with crown cocks, using the net-like plastic soap box, cut into two halves, or the legendary blue-colored St. Louis sugar paper bag as goalposts on wooden boards. We enjoyed soccer and oftentimes organized age-grade competitions around it between groups and clubs in major sports, including football and table tennis, which were the major sports in our neighborhood. I was born into and subsequently raised on 6 strict value systems. It might surprise you to know that money came last of all these value systems. The first is the application of knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. The second is integrity. The third is valor. Discretion, we were taught, is the better part of valor. The fourth is to ensure that you have a means of livelihood, legally approved by the society. The fifth is honor, and the last is wealth. Oh, you can see, growing up, money was never foremost in our value system. How can I forget in a hurry? The evergreen words of my father and the guidepost through the fast city life of Lagos. He will tell me, and I quote, "You are my wealth. I am leaving for you a good name. Handle it carefully. A good name will take you to where money cannot reach. Treasure it." Those admonitions were considered sacrosanct. But what do we have today? Particularly, what do our youth consider as values? It looks like our values have turned around 360 degrees. Sad. In my growing up years, food was relatively cheap and affordable, and the general standard of living was truly standard, as most families were within the average and middle class, with the rich also in their own class, but there was always a connecting point for us all. I recall that we often take delight in accompanying my mom and aunt to the market, where family household items were purchased with the naira to dollar exchange rate still at between 60 kobo to $1 in 1978, 59 kobo to $1 in 1979, 50 kobo to $1 in 1980, 60 kobo to $1 in 1981 through 1982. Our official banknotes of the 5 naira, 10 naira, 20 naira, as well as the coin denominations of 50 kobo, 1 naira, and 2 naira were still very relevant for purchases of basic household items like Uncle Ben's rice, coca huts, sardines, and geisha, which were for breakfast and lunch packs to school during this period. Families could comfortably feed and even indulge in some luxuries like vacations both within and outside the shores of the country. I remember joining my dad to the photography coverage of the receptions for the premier FIFA Coca-Cola JVC Under-16 gold-winning Golden Eaglets led by Nduka Ogbade, by General Muhammadu Buhari and Tunde Idiagbon from the Muritala Mohammed International Airport, and later at the State House in Ikoyi. I also remember there were public libraries for extramural classes and self-development. Most of those facilities have now sadly been converted into private property, while the society suffers the consequences of such actions. The influence of my father as a society grew out also had a lot of positive influence on me. It helped me tremendously in developing my social skills and personal confidence early in life, as I got on the social scene quite early simply by being his first son and support staff. I was introduced into the music and lyrics of a countless numbers of the musicians of that era, who also happened to be father figures simply because I was my father's son and his rookie apprentice learning photography. The quartet of Chief Commander Ebenezer Obey, King Sonny Ade, Alhaji Auja Bello, our kingsman from Isai in the Oke-Ogun area, and Lalaji Sikiru Ayinde Barrister were father figures whom I often visited at their homes in Papa Ajao, Bariga, and the Tire and the Orejimeji Street neighborhood of Alhaji Sikiru Ayinde Barrister in the early 80s, in the company of my father, as well as attend their gigs when time permitted. This relationship is such that till date, I can recount almost every album of this quartet effortlessly because of the bond that was formed from childhood. Social life in the Lagos then was such that we regularly move along Edio Road through Moshalashi and what later became Fela Kuti's original Kalakuta Republic, without the fears of any form of harassment whatsoever. We could do movies at the Jebako Cinema in Edio Road and still stroll down to a number of gigs around the hangout within National Stadium in Surulere Axis, while sauntering back through the Kodu Road in the early morning hours on foot. There was not only adequate security, but also zero vulnerability because we grew up in well-knitted communities that looked out for one another. We are who we are today because of those strict and controlled upbringing we had. Our levels of morals are what they are today because we were taught of the value of dignity in labor. Whatever we achieved modestly is as a result of the lessons in contentment engraved in our subconscious mind. Yes, we had deviants in our time too, but they were not as rampant as what obtains today around us. The good old days I grew up in were of life and times significantly marked by a period in which our values as Omoluabi aligned, and I strongly desire that today, in spite of our modernity, civilizations and technology, it is my fervent wish that we will begin to reconsider the deeper issues of communality that shape our humanity and transformed us to who we were and what we have become, with the hope that our children are equally turn out better than we have done. Yes, we can collectively change the narrative. With a will, we can. This is my thrust for enlisting on this crusade with Sir Semore Badejo in this patriotic quest for the return and refinement of the good old days upon every facet of our lives. Our children certainly deserve a better and brighter days ahead. Thank you.